Welcome to another Founder Wisdom podcast. We have Paula Robbins with us. She is founder at Sunlit Pathways. She's a metaphysical hypnotherapist. We're going to have fun today. An intuitive soul coach. We're going to find out more about that. She's an entrepreneur in the field of consciousness. This pod is presented to you by podfire.com. If you want to start and scale your own podcast, you can go to podfire.com. Paula, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and Sunlit Pathways.
Thanks, Charles. So I have been a metaphysician and hypnotherapist for 17 years. I started my practice back in 2007. And it's really evolved a great deal. I started out just as an independent hypnotherapist, and then I started a network of hypnotherapists and really evolved into more metaphysical work and intuitive soul coaching. So it's been a really cool ride.
And you've led a career before that. What led you to launch your business in 2007?
So my previous career, I was in corporate America in the staffing and recruiting industry for 16 years. And towards the end of that 16 years, I just started really burning out, and I knew it was time to do something different. So I just started praying. I'm like, all right, God, I know I'm not supposed to be here. Where do you want me? And I went to go see a hypnotherapist in 2006. And before I ever did any sessions with her at all, I knew right away, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do. And then it was just an incredible snowball effect of synchronicities between a big bonus check that paid for my tuition to train in hypnotherapy, free office space for 2 years, this miracle phone call that came in literally 5 minutes after I submitted my resignation letter, asking if I wanted to be a part-time consultant for another recruiting firm while I was kicking off my business. I mean, it just all came together the way it was supposed to. So it's been really neat.
And why hypnotherapy? Why did you decide to focus on that?
So I stepped onto the path of recovery from alcoholism back in 1988. So I've been clean and sober for a lot of years. And in 2006, as I was approaching 18 years sober, I had already helped a lot of people one-on-one. And I knew that I still wanted to help people one-on-one. I wanted to do something that was of higher service. And again, it was really the synchronicities. And when I met the hypnotherapist that I did in 2006, it was just so resonant. She had come from corporate America. She had built a business. She was helping people in a really profound way. And she was also faring well as far as equating her corporate America career financially. So I'm like, okay, there's a lot of pieces that come together here. And there was just a great love for healing work and helping people in a deeper, soulful way.
Why did you choose the healer path on your side? Because not everyone is good or capable of healing folks.
You know, I think the healer path chose me. I think that I have had healer capabilities very intuitively since I was a very little girl, very empathic. I pick up on energy. I'm very sensitive to it. I always have been. And I knew very early on in my adulthood, 18, 20 years old, that I could channel energy. I didn't have any idea what I was doing, but I knew that I could. I knew there was something about the way I felt energy. And this just gave me some formal education in how to apply it, both through hypnotherapy and voice, as well as energy and soul coaching.
And alcoholism, I binge drank from like 15 to 19. Why was it so addictive? Why did you get into it, and how did you get out of that trap?
So one of my specialties, well, I specialize predominantly in trauma, and addiction and alcoholism are very deeply rooted in trauma. And I have an incredibly high trauma childhood, a lot of self-abuse as a teen, a lot of binge drinking, blackout drinking, volatility in my drinking. And I knew growing up around alcoholism that I did not want to repeat kind of the generational issues. So I knew fairly young, one, that I was in trouble, but two, that I needed to do something about it. So again, it's synchronicity. I mean, it's so interesting. These are great questions. And I was an avid hitchhiker in my teenage years. I hitchhiked everywhere I went. And gratefully, I never got in a car that was dangerous or where I was hurt. And I got into recovery because someone in the 12-step programs picked me up hitchhiking and told me about recovery and kind of told me about the life that he was living. And I was like, I really need to know some people who don't drink and abuse drugs like me because I'm kind of in trouble. And we became friends, and I got into the 12-step program and started going to meetings. And that was 36 years ago. I'm still a very active member in recovery.
Wow. So that man like picked out people, and was he from a religious background? Because I can picture that man is like, yeah, I'm gonna pick her up. I probably know she's not on a good route, and I don't know, I'm gonna put God in her life, or AA. And it seems like a good type of guy.
He was a very good guy, and no, not religious at all. I mean, the 12-step programs aren't based on religion, but more spirituality and spiritual principles and application. And what's funny about this question is, again, more synchronicity. So that's somewhere in our topic here. When he picked me up, he was a long-haired, kind of greasy, tattooed biker guy. And those were my people. Those were the people that I did a lot of my drinking and partying with. So as soon as I saw him pull up to pick me up, I knew this was good people. I trusted biker people. And it was 11 years later that I realized that his name had some synchronicity. His name was JC. And I had never made the connection until I was 11 years sober that JC were also the initials of Jesus Christ. And I was like, how weird is that? I don't think that he had any Christianity to him, but I do believe that there was some significant divine synchronicity to him stopping for me that day.
It's quite incredible, yeah, that this changed your life. Me, I think it was just like moving places and telling, a friend of mine that was also a co-founder that it was her last binge drinking after we were done, that we went on a 2 weeks binge drink in Europe, and after that, all gone and done, 2 to 3 days hangover. I never ever wanted to touch alcohol again after that. I still have a drink every now and then, but yeah, it's quite powerful, the attraction that some people feel towards alcohol. I didn't have much trauma on my end. Interestingly enough, it was just in the culture to binge drink in Quebec, Canada. So like we did it quite a lot. It was like a competition, who could get the most fucked up. Certainly relate also to the blacking out and all of that. I had tons of blackouts. It's scary, but I don't think my brain has some scars nowadays. On your side, your clients nowadays, from what background do they come from? Are they more on the corporate side of things? Are they entrepreneurs? And what challenges do they often come up to you with?
So they're across the board. They're all over the place. I work with youth. I work with women and men of all ages, all backgrounds. The predominant similarity is they all have a history of trauma that's affecting them in their present day, whether that is obesity or anxiety or depression, or they can't sleep, or they have physical health conditions. Every client I work with has a history of trauma. And I think all of us do. I don't think anybody's exempt from having traumatic events in their background, but the commonality is their readiness to face that trauma and heal.
And how do they actually do that? They spend time with you. There's some meditation, some questions, some feeling, and then they're on their own. They have homework and they come back to you again. How does that work?
So I have a very specific therapeutic protocol that I take people through. It is all hypnotherapy. It includes conversation, it includes intuitive coaching and some homework assignments for things that I need them to be doing in between the sessions. But for the most part, I have them provide the information. Tell me the traumatic events of your life. And we go in and use a modality called cellular release therapy. It's a very effective modality to release trauma at the cellular level. And it's based on permission. So it's a idiomotor signal hypnotherapy technique in which a client uses the responding index finger for yes, pinky finger for no. So they're responding with idiomotor signals, not necessarily with voice or visualization, but in a trance state. We're asking the subconscious permission. Can you let go? Can you release and clear this event or these events or this belief or fear or deeper theme? So we go through a lot of progressive stages of the work, starting with that list, and then into some deeper regression, beliefs, soul contracts. It gets pretty metaphysical and pretty deep as we go through the protocol.
Love that. And hypnotherapy, most of the time, it's a fast track to results via the classic psychotherapy. Do you agree with that? And why would that be?
So I think that depends on the client. So one of the most common questions that I get is, can anybody be hypnotized? And my answer is only the willing. So the vast majority of people who come to me have been referred by somebody else who's gotten results. And when they come to me and we talk about what's been happening and what is hypnotherapy, my first piece is, do you agree? Are you willing to try this modality? And there's a ton of different kinds of hypnotherapy out there. There's many modalities, many techniques. So some are more effective than others. There's a lot of free hypnotherapy that you can find on YouTube that for some people can be very effective. So it really depends. And I do believe that this particular model, this particular work, for me personally, so I'll speak from my own experience, this was more effective than any of the therapies that I had tried for the 20 years prior to becoming a hypnotherapist. So I got sober at 20, but I didn't become a hypnotherapist until I was almost 40. And I had done a lot of therapies. I'd worked with shamans and psychiatry and psychology, and I'd worked the 12 steps numerous times. This work was profound and pretty life-shifting very, very quickly, which is why I became a practitioner of this particular modality.
I'm curious also, the folks that you work with, normally, why don't they go to a psychotherapist? Why do they choose a coach? Is a coach like more socially accepted? Is it a more modern approach to mental health?
That's a good question. And I think that it's important that I clarify that I have more than one title. So I often reference myself as a metaphysician because the work I do is so metaphysical, energetically, psychologically, physically. There's a lot that we're doing to work on the inside. But as a soul coach, that's an aspect of the hypnotherapy work and the metaphysical work, but I'm not necessarily just a coach. There are people who come to me just for talk therapy, just for coaching, just for intuitive guidance. But there's no anyone who's coming to another practitioner, a psychotherapist, a hypnotherapist, a soul coach, they're aiming for somebody who's going to help them get results. And that is something that you really can't determine. I have clients who also have psychotherapists or counselors or psychiatrists, and they do the hypnotherapy also. And I have clients who just do the hypnotherapy. So it really varies person to person, whatever is the best for that individual.
What problems do you see surfacing in today's humans in this society, especially since post-COVID happened?
A lot of anxiety, a lot of fears. People are worried about what can happen. People are kind of stuck sometimes in what has happened, and they want to feel more free. They want to feel more trust in the process of life and in themselves. So I think anxiety is still prevalent. I think it's been prevalent for decades. I just think it's more at the surface. And I think that people are also much more willing to take responsibility for their own well-being. And they're not about, blaming a spouse or an ex or their parents. Not that that doesn't still happen, because there is difficult experiences that have trigger, but people want to address their own stuff and find a way to not repeat the conditioning that they've grown up with or that they were facing in a difficult relationship. They want to heal.
That's quite hard also nowadays, because a lot of people don't have time to work on their own health and mental health. How can people first realize that they have this problem and they sort of need help with it?
When somebody's struggling, they know it. They don't need to point it out. And pain is quite the teacher. Pain will push people onto a path of self-care or healing. And pain comes in a lot of forms. It could be physical pain. It could be illness. It could be emotional pain, such as fear or shame or anxiety or depression. Any of those heavier emotions are difficult and they're painful to go through. So when somebody's hurting, they want support. So they'll reach out, or someone that loves them will support them and say, hey, maybe it's time that you reach out. So it just depends on the degree of where the person is. But finding time, it's kind of like that book or that movie, He's Just Not That Into You. I like to reference that a lot, because if somebody is into it, if they're into their self-care and they're starting to feel better and they're starting to live better, they're seeing a therapist, they're healing, they're working out, they're eating better, they're sleeping more, whatever it is, they want more of that. So they get into it and they make the time. The time just tends to come together.
On your side, do you often get overwhelmed with hearing dark stuff from your clients? And if so, do you what's your routine to kind of self-heal or have that evaporate?
Every now and again, I have a client who's got some really incredible trauma that is heavy to hear about, and I really feel compassion and empathy for them. But more so, because I know what's coming for them when they heal and when they release that and when that baggage is kind of lifted from their soul, I'm pretty elated. So it's a balance. I would say more so I'm in a place of holding space for them that you can heal. You're gonna feel better. You're gonna feel lighter. Life's gonna get good. So having walked with literally hundreds of people around the world in this work, I'm really clear what kind of shifts people can have for the better. So that's more my focus and my energy most of the time. Rarely, the only time that I ever get really worn down by it is if I have a really heavy client load and I've spent a lot of time in sessions in any given week. And my client load, of course, fluctuates. So it just depends.
Change is hard. Does the change that you've seen in your clients, does it last or does it wear off and they constantly need to be working on themselves?
So I think that we all evolve. And I don't think that the healing fades or that the healing is disengaged by any means. I think every healing avenue, whether it's the work that I facilitate or any other type of therapy, I think it all has value. But we evolve and life doesn't stop happening just because we did some healing work. So people still get their heart broken. People still go through grief and somebody that they love passes away or leaves them. People still have car accidents and illness. So life is still going to happen, and we're still going to have some things that make us aware, perhaps, of the next layer. What do I need to address? What do I need to work on or heal now? And some of the things they heal, yeah, they do stay permanently healed, but it doesn't mean that they can't have a recurrence of something similar or a deeper layer of something that they didn't quite become ready to address before?
We often see parents pass on these traumas to their kids. I'm about to be a parent, not sure that I have much traumas, or maybe I've healed some of them as well. How can I make sure, yeah, to be a good dad and not have my kid mimic some of my less optimal behaviors, let's call them that way?
So first of all, congratulations. Parenthood is wonderful and probably the best experience you'll have of your life, just knowing that you're coming in with a mindset of you want to be a good parent. And the one thing I've said to hundreds of parents is the best parent is the one who's a little worried that they're not a good parent. So you'll do just fine. And children are forgiving. The pieces that I would offer are one, be sure that you take responsibility when you've made a mistake and apologize. Show your children that balance of, I am the parent, I am the guide, but I'm human and I make mistakes and I'm sorry. And two, empower them. Teach them how to make decisions that are good for them. Teach them what it means to make good decisions and guide their own path by setting a good example. If you want your children to get good grades and make good choices and have good friends and have a powerful goal for their future, then set that example. Show them what that looks like. And they will respect you in a very deep way if they see both the light and the shadow and know that you're human. And two, what you expect of them is exactly how you're walking.
That's good. Well, thanks for the advice today. Paula, where can people find out more about you?
So you can find me at either paularobbins.com or sunlitpathways.com. I'm pretty easy to find. There's videos and other podcasts and some examples of my work and things like that on my website.